let's go back now. Let's go back nearly 4,000 years. One of the most difficult passages in the Bible is Genesis chapter 22. What happens in Genesis chapter 22? Abraham is told to take his son to Mount Moriah and to sacrifice him there. You know the story, right? He's about to sacrifice him. In fact, well, actually, on the way up, Isaac's a teenager. Abraham is bringing him up the hill to sacrifice. He tells his servants, stay here while the boy and I go up the hill, and we'll worship there. And on the way up the hill, Isaac says, Father, I see we have the wood for the sacrifice. Where's the lamb? And what does Abraham say to his son? Yeah, God will provide the sacrifice. So he gets him up, he builds the altar, he puts the wood under it, and Isaac's probably still going, well, where's the lamb? Suddenly, Abraham grabs him and throws him on the altar and starts to tie him up. What do you think Isaac's thinking? What is going on here? I did not sign up for this. Right? He ties him up, he takes the dagger, and he's about to basically gut his son. And the angel says, do not touch the boy. And then Abraham looks over to the side and sees that there's a ram caught in the thicket by his horns, who is the sacrifice, and he then sacrifices the ram, of course, instead of Isaac. And many atheists and unbelievers will say, how could you believe such a story? I mean, if God were to come to you today and say, sacrifice your son, what would you say? This is crazy. You know, we'd commit you to some kind of psychiatric ward. You'd have to go see Dr. Hilda, right?
And I would medicate you.
That's right.
And I would medicate
She wouldn't be able to get you off, right? Well, if I ask you, such and such is typical of, say, an American, what does the word typical mean? What does that word mean? Common? It's a word that means something. This is a pattern, right? Americans seem to behave this way, whatever it is. As Raouf mentioned earlier, he said, what do you call somebody who speaks two languages, bilingual, three languages, trilingual, one language, you call them an American, right? So that's typical of an American. We can just speak English, barely that now, right? So that's something called a type. It's typical. Well, this is Mount Moriah right here. If we fast forward 2,000 years, we come to this mountain, we come to this hill, and if this is Antonia Fortress, which it probably is, Pilate's the area that he tried Jesus on was right here. Yeah, the Praetorium. He tried Jesus right on the same hill, Mount Moriah. So Isaac is a type of Christ. His life is typical of Christ because in the Old Testament it says God will provide the sacrifice. In the New Testament, God is the sacrifice. You see, God is the sacrifice. He is the sacrifice because he comes, he adds humanity over his deity, and he is the one sacrificed on the same hill that Isaac is sacrificed on. And these types are throughout the scriptures. In fact, if you study this, you'll notice that many Old Testament characters have patterns in their lives which are typical of Christ. Joseph is one. He's betrayed, right? He's sold for 30 pieces of silver. Well, so's Jesus. Right? He helps his people when they come to him. Well, Jesus does the same thing. Moses is a type. Jonah is a type. There are patterns in their lives that fit the ultimate, what's called the anti-type, which is Jesus. Now, Jesus also was in the temple, obviously, before his crucifixion, probably down there. And you remember the story when the Pharisees try and trap him? They come and say, should we pay taxes to Caesar? Now, he's in a dilemma. Why? Because if he says no, all the zealots are going to revolt and not pay taxes, and then there's going to be this big problem. If he says yes, all the Jews would hate him because the Jews didn't want to pay taxes to the Romans. So he says, give me a coin. Do you have a coin? So they give him a coin, and he holds up the coin, and he says, whose image is on the coin? And they say what? Caesar's image is on the coin. And so then he says,
Give unto Caesar.
yeah, give to Caesar what is Caesar's, and give to God's what is God's. And of course they were flummoxed. They didn't know what to do then. If he were permitted to go on, I think he would have said, whose image is on you? God's image is on you. So give to Caesar what is Caesar's, but give to God what is God's. You are God's, in the sense that his image is on you. So you are to give yourself to God. And that's ultimately what we're to do if we're to accept the free gift that Christ accomplished right here. We're to give ourselves to him. If we give ourselves to him, we will be with him forever. If we refuse to, that's our decision. We won't be. He won't force us into his presence against his will.